Have you ever considered moving out of the country? And would you like to learn from an expert who's been doing it for over a decade? I hope so. It's a very exciting question to leave the United States for safety or for wealth or whatever various reasons there might be. And we have an expert on the show today. Hey, everybody, welcome to Voluntary Living with me, David James Rodriguez. We are building a world based on consent, self-ownership, and freedom. And I'm very excited about our guest today because he has been doing some real solution work for families and individuals for many years. And we crossed paths many years ago, and we got to cross paths again. I said, man, this guy's a dynamo, an expert, knows what he's talking about, and it would be of great value for the audience to learn from and to consider. He has a new book coming out. So before we bring you on, sir, let me just read your bio so people know who you are. Meet Mr. Michael Cobb, the visionary founder and CEO of ECI Development, a trailblazing force in international real estate. With a passion for creating communities that transcend borders, philosophies, and ideologies, Michael's vision is as inspiring as it is groundbreaking. Michael has pioneered innovative projects that redefine living from Belize to Nicaragua, Panama to Costa Rica, and now Honduras and El Salvador. His cutting-edge developments offer a range of styles of resort-style living for all, from private villas to tiny homes, branded hotels, from Best Western to Marriott, vineyards, and even homes over the water. Michael's specialty is in supporting both the overseas investor and the expat with their purchases in a foreign country or market. Having been an expat himself for over a decade, he knows the details that make all the difference to a first-time buyer in a new region or culture. These key details can not only save tens of thousands of dollars, but could make or break a decision or project. His new book, How to Buy Your Home Overseas and Get It Right the First Time, lays it all out for readers and is coming out very soon. He's going to tell us about it. And as the founder of Exotic K International, Michael revolutionized mortgage services and set new standards for excellence in real estate development. Today, he continues to inspire others as a sought-after speaker and consultant, sharing his expertise on a global scale. So welcome to the show. That's amazing bio, Michael.
That was a mouthful. I'm glad you got it all out. Anyway,
well, it's important. You're doing important work, so it's good that people know. You're an expert in the field, and of course, spending all this time helping people. And I think you were in Nicaragua for many years. But why don't you want to start anywhere you want? Like I said, we met some years ago, and I said this guy's doing amazing work helping people get out of the U.S. And this is just for people to think about it, to consider it. We'll go over some of the pros and cons and such. But yeah, feel free to start wherever you like. Maybe why somebody would consider moving out of the country, and we'll kind of unfold the story from there.
Sure. First, even before we get started, I want to thank you for what you're doing. I mean, you're taking a powerful message to the marketplace, not just here on the podcast, but as you speak at different events. We met at Acapulco, and you were emceeing an event there. Phenomenal. And I mean, those are the kinds of events where you're out. I guess also the Live Free Academy, what's Exit and Build, right? In Bastrop, Texas, most recently, right?
Yep.
And so, I mean, you're out there on the public stage, out in front, you're spreading the good word. And you know what, David, thank you, because at the end of the day, it takes courage to do what you do, what we do, but it's powerfully important, and you're getting the job done. So thank you for that. I really appreciate the relationship, and now over many years of friendship, which is kind of cool, right? I mean, you meet people who are first colleagues, but then as you get to know them, it develops into more than that. And and by the way, so I did just release a book. I mean, I've been working overseas for 31 years, lived as an expat for 14 years, so I certainly understand that piece of it. But we were just talking before we came online about your new book. I mean, the fact that you've got something out there that you put out that really lays out why it's important on the educational front to look at things differently and examine things from a different paradigm. And that's what we do in our business as well. But I don't really actually know where to start, David. I mean, there's just so much to talk.
First of all, thank you.
I just wanted to compliment you, man, because you're doing it. You're doing it.
Yeah. Well, that means a lot, Mike, because you're someone I respect greatly. You're a successful guy and kind guy, powerful, dynamic speaker yourself, and really come from the heart. So I really appreciate those words. And
Yeah.
people should know that these are the type of people like you and myself, and we are going to be leading, doing what we can, as best, being in public, and it's not that comfortable to be out there. But seeing what's happening on the planet, for me, it has been more uncomfortable to stay silent. When you see
Yes.
something and you need to let people know about what's going on because, we've been victims by the state or these predators out there. And it's like, you know what? We're going to find solutions now. The exit and build strategy, I love the
Yep.
people's reset, different like parallel societies or parallel solutions to what they're doing. It's up to us. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's great to connect with
Well,
people
and
like you because, like, we're going to do it. We're doing
it is. And
it.
it's important for people to know that there are resources out there, whether it's
Uh-huh.
you, me, many others. There are conferences like Exit and Build,
Yeah.
in Acapulco and others where you've just got these incredible resources available. Because sometimes I think we feel like we're alone, right? Like
That's right.
we feel isolated. I know in my little town, I live in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. It's a beautiful little town in the Shenandoah Valley, but I don't know anyone there that I could talk to like we talk. We get together, we see
Sure.
each other at events and conferences, and we both have a job to do, but then sometimes we're just hanging out talking, right?
Yeah.
There is nobody I know of in my local community that I can actually talk with about the stuff. And I think that's a feeling that it's broad, right? A lot of people I see at conferences are just so happy to be at a conference around other people
Yeah.
that's truly a community. I mean, I use that word very specifically. Like
Yeah.
you go to a conference, there's 100 people there or 200 people there, whatever it is, that becomes a community because all of a sudden you're around people that share similar philosophies, ideals, goals, concerns, right? And depending on the conference, some maybe turn into more bitch sessions than others, but many it's true, but many of the conferences that I love to attend and then repeat are the
Mm-hmm.
conferences where instead of it being a bitch session about how bad it is, the focus is on, okay, we're a community. We have resources in each other. We have resources in the speakers and the various people presenting and things like that. Like, how do we take this and do something wonderful with it? What
Yeah.
can we do as individuals alongside others as a community to make our lives and the lives of our community better? And by the way, I think when we do that, we actually kind of bring along segments of society that aren't paying attention, they're asleep, they don't care,
Mm.
whatever, right? So I think we kind of bring more along with this than we think we do. But we are definitely out there pioneering it. But that's important. There
Yeah.
are communities, there are resources. We're
Yeah.
not alone in
Yeah.
how we feel. We just have to figure out how to connect with others that feel the same way.
That's a great point. Yeah, the isolation effect, we saw it during the pandemic, and this is a tactic of totalitarian regimes,
Yeah.
is they know they're outnumbered, so it's literally an isolation. I think they call it atomization, right? They want to feel like you're an atom all by yourself. And
Yeah.
so at these events, like you said, we get to make new relationships and start to feel connected. And I always recommend to people, get cell phone numbers or
Yes.
emails or whatever, and literally text them or call them, check in every few months or something,
Yeah.
and realize, like, this is a big awakening process, and the overwhelm can be quite drastic sometimes. Like, what am I going to do? It's like, well, we're all in the same boat here, so
Right.
like little by little baby steps. And I like the Martin Luther King quote. He says, don't try looking for the whole staircase, just take the first step. And I
Yeah.
think that's the process, little by little, and it begins with the conversations and just kind of
Yep.
knowing what's available and what's possible. And people get to learn from you who've been doing it for so many years.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, we help people with what I call an exit strategy, right? And a lot of times, again, just sort of kind of circling back to this idea of atomization, I think that is a very good word, by the way, the
Mm,
atomization of people, or trying to make people feel atomized, right? We're
right.
not, but they
That's
want
right.
to they want to make
Deception.
us
Yep.
right, feel that
Yep.
way. A lot of times I think people feel like, oh, for the exit plan, I'm just gonna, I'm getting out, right? But there's no real sense of kind of two important factors, like what am I getting out to, or
Mm,
where? I mean, what the location? What does that mean? Not just as in a physical location, but in terms of like the living environment in that place, right? But then there's also the sense of community, right? Can I land somewhere
yeah.
where I can either find or build a community that I will enjoy. And I think if we look at how to, and that's the subtitle of my book, right? How to get it right the first time, right? And so there's sort of what I call the physical aspects of due diligence, which are, making sure you get title to the property and a bunch of other things. And we can talk about some of that stuff in a few minutes because it's really, really important, right? And I would say that maybe actually 2/3 of my book is dedicated to the concept of what I call the physicalness of the product, right? Buy what you see, know the developer, just things, title and quality of construction and standards and things like that. So that's about 2/3. But 1/3 of the book is actually about own community. And we talk about the power of community. And that piece a lot of times kind of gets dropped out of these conversations because it's easy to talk about the physical stuff, right? Community is this nebulous word. I mean, what does it mean? I don't know what it means. You don't know. I mean, like, but we might not. Here's look, if we ask 100 people define community, we would literally probably get 100 different definitions, right?
Yeah.
But I think each of us, in subjectively or intuitively, is trying to describe this very subjective thing, right? Well, the really cool thing is the marketplace, is the actual marketplace quantifies and objectifies this subjective quantity thing called community, and it does it in the form of price. I mean, so if you look at real communities where you walk down the street and you ask every owner of a home in one of these communities, hey, do you feel like there's a community here? And they'll say, oh yeah, this is why we bought here. We immediately felt at home. We had friends, we had neighbors, we had a community, right? Versus a property that might just be 3, 4, 5 miles down the road, right? It's the same weather. It's the same, it's the same everything, right? The grocery store is about the same distance away. Nothing's different. And you see properties outside of communities that would be comparables in terms of square footage and all that kind of stuff, 1/3, 1/4 the price. And you think, well, why is somebody willing to pay 3 or 4 times the price for a home 4 miles away than they're willing to pay for that exact same quote unquote house somewhere else? And community is an answer to that, right? Because it is something that can be quantified in the form of price, but it's this powerful subjective feeling. And so I think that's really important for us, as we think about an exit plan. Do we really just want to go move somewhere and do this because we're getting out? Oh my God, I got to get out of here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, okay. Slow down. That's one of the things in the book. Slow down. Slow down. Measure twice, cut once.
Right.
So I mean, a lot of that kind of counsels in the book as well, because again, we need to make sure we get the physical piece right. Those are important, but we also need to make sure we get the community piece right, or wherever we end up, we're just not going to be happy. And if we're going to do all that work, you're going to spend all that money. We're going to take all that time and effort and bandwidth to pick up and move somewhere. Like, let's really try to, check the boxes so we get it right the first time.
That is a great point. Yeah, it's humans that we like being around, and good humans make a great community, and the lack of good humans makes it, maybe a sad time, So that's a great point. Yeah, the community
sad
is
or lonely. I mean, it can be lonely too, right? If you don't find a community, you're still atomized, right? Even in an environment where they're not trying to make you feel atomized, you may find out that you are because you're lonely, right? You don't have people around you that and the other thing, I think one of the dangers that we face, I speak to a lot of groups, I'm, I don't know, 3, 4 conferences a month I'm speaking at, and and maybe a quarter of them, more or less, are what I would call freedom oriented generally. In fact, I'm on my way now to Las Vegas. I'll be speaking at Freedom Fest, which is a big libertarian event. I'm moderating a panel there from Mark Skousen, and the audience there is very libertarian, right? And Anarchapulco is anarchist and live free. I mean, you get the whole range of things, right?
Yeah.
But what I find, and this is the danger, David. The danger is, especially at freedom oriented events, liberty oriented events, is we have this notion that we don't like big government. We hate big government, you know? And so I purposely put up a slide and I try to get people to boo and hiss me, right? So, I put up, you're in the nanny state and you love it, and then boo, hiss, right? You know, whatever.
Yeah.
But the truth is in the United States and in Canada, we live in a bubble, and we don't even know the bubble really that we live in. And it has to do with, in this particular case, consumer protection. I put up a slide with, I don't know, 15 different consumer protection laws and regulations, right? So you've got laws, you've got regulations, you've got agencies, and then you've got private. You've got Ralph Nader, like, consumer advocacy groups, right? I mean, they're not even government, and they're out there looking out for you. So we as consumers in the US and Canada, we spend our lives growing up in this seller beware environment, right?
Yeah.
Lemon laws, man. If you sell me a lemon, you're taking it back, and I'm gonna sue you, or, whatever it is, right? All the nonsense. So we live in this bubble of seller beware. And when we go overseas, we are immediately in the world of buyer beware. And the problem is, as a consumer who's been probably grown up in this bubble of protection and nanny state, right? We don't know how to act. We don't know how to think. We don't know how to make purchases or do due diligence in a buyer beware environment. It's very different. And so one of probably the most important thing in my book, truly, if I had to boil the essence of my book down in just a couple little points, it's we have to learn to think differently. Like, first and foremost, we have to learn to think differently. How do I think and act in a buyer beware environment? It's very different. It's very different. And I've got, 30 examples of how you can do that, right? The problem is 30 examples, it's 30 out of 30 million, because or an infinite number of examples that are possible, right? But there's 30 out of 30,000 I'll make up, right? So there's a big number, right? Yeah. But the point of these 30 is to, okay, here's 30 examples of how you have to think different. And they try to cover the whole range of kind of from one end of the spectrum to the other in terms of the things you might encounter as you go overseas to buy a property, right? So that when something else slides in the middle between a couple of them, right, which many things do, nothing will probably ever really line up exactly on any of those, right? You go, oh, wait a minute, I need to think differently about this. Bingo. I need to think differently about this, right? And that's truly my goal, my hope. With the book is that people learn to think differently in a buyer beware environment. Because if we do that, if we slow down, right, that's a big part of it. Slow down, right? Go slow. And then the other thing that I really try to drive home in the book is this idea of humility. We don't know what we don't know, right? We don't. And we can't, right? I mean, that's just pretty obvious. We can't know what we don't know. We don't know, and we can't know what we don't know. But we also have to forget what we think we know, right? Like this idea of I'm coming with assumptions. Well, this is how it is. So here in the US, I'm in the US right now. So this is how it is in the US. That must be how it is there, right? Yeah. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And got some good examples about that too. But when you take, we don't know what we don't know, and we have to forget what we think we know, and you put those two together, you really come up with humility. And humility is our single biggest resource or attribute, character attribute we have as a human being to help us navigate in a buyer beware environment. Humility. We're going to ask the dumbest questions, right? There's no dumb question, by the way, but whatever. We're going to ask the dumbest questions. We're going to ask, we're not going to make any assumptions. We're going to pretend like we don't know anything, right? And I think that's hard for many people because, I've been doing real estate deals my whole life, and I have 16 properties that I manage. Okay, great. Good for you. I'm happy for you. But when you take that knowledge overseas, it's not worth very much. In fact, I would actually say it's a detriment because it gives you false confidence that you actually know what you're doing, right? So humility, most powerful characteristic we can have when we're looking at buying property overseas, but also moving and living overseas.
That's a great point. Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is from Socrates, and he says, "There's one thing that I know, and that's that I know nothing." And I said, did he really say that? He's considered as a wise man. He really said that. So
Yeah,
I agree with that. And also we understand like the state or these corporations and all these things. They try to manipulate us through propaganda and elevate our ego and get us all fighting and all these things.
yeah,
But really, truly, humility puts us down and really is it's the truth, right? Because the great mystery of life is a question. We don't even know exactly how we got here, what we're doing here. So that alone should be enough to be like, you know what, maybe I don't know. But I really love that you talk about the difference between buyer beware and seller beware. Because, like you
yes,
said, we're in a bubble and the government's going to protect us and the consumer agencies are going to protect us. But you go to other countries and it's a whole different ballgame. And you
yeah,
did say slow down too. So what
yep.
would the what would be the ideal timeline, would you say, if somebody was like, hey, it's June 2024. I got the capital, I got the intention, and I am quite seriously thinking about moving to Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, these places that you help people. Is that a 3 month, 6 month, 12 month due diligence? In your experience, what would you suggest to people so they're not moving too fast and also they're still making some forward progress? They're like, hey, man, I want to get out of the US if they want to.
Yeah. Well, look, I've got, it's going to sound crazy. My development company is 28 years old. We've helped, well over 1,000 people, buy a property, and many of them have moved overseas. Many of them have bought it as an investment property or a vacation property, rental property, stuff like that. But, you know, the, the advice I give people, and again, it sounds crazy coming from a business where we develop and sell real estate, is that you should rent for at least 3 months. I would say 6 months before you buy.
Mm,
And the reason is this. I'm going to tell the story about Dan and Carol. They're a
mm,
couple that I got to know over, I guess I started to get to know them maybe 20, 25 years ago. I would see them at this similar conferences. And well, in fact, let me back up and give one other piece of advice real quick.
yeah.
Generally, when people are looking at property overseas, they haven't picked a place. They're looking at, I'm just going to say, they're looking at Belize, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. Just, whatever, four
Okay.
countries, right?
Yeah.
What I know for a fact is that you can rule someplace out in 2 or 3 days. You need at least 2 to 3 months, 6 months better to rule it in. And the example I say
Mm,
is, if you went to the shoe store and you were going to buy, you're going to try on 4 pairs of shoes, you know, one or two of them you're going to go, oh, these don't fit, and you put them
yeah.
back. You know that immediately, right? It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
no, they don't fit, right? And then 2 pairs, you say, you know what, these both fit pretty nice. So then you take those 2 pairs home and you start wearing them. And 3 months from now or 6 months from now, there's one pair that's always on your feet, and there's another pair that's in the bottom of your closet somewhere because they
Mm,
just aren't quite right. They
yeah.
fit, but they're just not, right. And I believe that buying a property overseas is a lot like buying shoes. So
Mm,
if I was looking at 4 countries, and I've just picked those four, I would make a 12, 15-day trip. I would
mm,
spend 3 days in Belize, 3 days in Nicaragua, 3 days in Costa Rica, 3 days in Panama. At the end of that trip, probably one or two or even three of those countries, you might go, nah, that's it. I mean, it's easy. Nah, okay.
yeah.
Now you got one or two where you go, maybe, right? Maybe. But instead of buying a property, you go back and you rent for 3 months or 6 months in one of those locations, or 3 months in each, whatever it is, right? And at the end of that 3 months, you will really know. But the story of Dan and Carol is really important. I got to know Dan and Carol. I saw them at different conferences. I don't know, 6 or 8 conferences over maybe a 3, 4 year period.
Mm,
Different places: Panama, Belize, Medellin. I might have seen them in Portugal. I don't remember. I saw them at some different conferences. Anyway, and they were looking for a place to make their full time home. They
mm,
so they got the country right, Colombia. They got the city right, Medellin. But
mm,
they loved it. They went down a few times. They said, and they bought. Now they get there and they bought in a neighborhood called Envigado. Okay. There's two main neighborhoods where a lot of the expats live: Envigado and Poblado. And Envigado and Poblado are next to each other. But the problem with many Latin American cities, but many US cities, is, they're only, whatever, 10, 15 miles. But during rush hour, that can be 2 hours. I mean, it's just dead stop, right?
Mm.
Dan and Carol, when they moved, they bought their condo in Envigado. They found that they found an English speaking church in Poblado, and they on Sunday, oh, it's 20 minutes or 15 minutes. Boom, you're in your car, you're in church in 15 minutes. All their friends, and they went out to lunch and dinner. That's their friend group. But every other day of the week, it's an hour plus to get over there, right? Because of traffic. Had they rented in Envigado for 6 months, went to church, met their English speaking church friends, they would have bought something in Poblado. So they got the country right. They got the city right. They didn't get the neighborhood right because but had they rented, they would have got the neighborhood correct as well. So to me, the rental piece is about the nuance. It's the nuance of neighborhood. It's the nuance of your friend group. You don't know where your friend group is going to live until you get there and make it. Right? You don't know, right? So I think renting is so important. And the other thing it does is it gives 6 months, is why I would say 6 months. 6 months gives the honeymoon period time to wear off. Everyone, and I'll give you a story. So let's say you end up at the beach, and there's this beautiful little thatched hut, bar at the beach, and you walk down from your house and down the beach every morning, and you sit down, and it's beautiful, and the waitress comes over sometime, after you've been there for 10 or 15 minutes. You don't care. It's beautiful. The breeze is blowing, the waves are kind of, she brings you your coffee. 20 minutes later, she's coming to take your breakfast order. 45 minutes later, you might get your breakfast. So you're at an hour and a half for 2-hour breakfast, but you don't care. You're at the beach, and this is it.
Right.
Ready for this?
Yeah.
3 months later, 4 months later, you walk in, and you're like, where the hell is my coffee? I need my coffee. Now, okay, nothing changed. The only thing that changed was between your ears, right? Same waitress, same waves, same palm trees, same wind, same 20 minutes to get your coffee. The only thing that changed was between your ears. And so, like, I always also counsel people to maintain a sense of adventure, right? Hey, you loved that place, when you first got there. Now you just want your coffee, have a coffee at home, and then come back, right? But we have to maintain a sense of adventure. But the key to 6 months is the honeymoon will wear off, and you will know whether or not living there is really right for you from a cultural standpoint, from an immersion standpoint. Most people who decide to move overseas have a pretty good sense of that, and it works, right? But maybe 10%, I'll pick a number, 10% of people, it doesn't work for whatever reason. And one of the biggest reasons, David, that people pull away and leave is that it's really hard to live for many people, not for me and not for most people, but for many people, it's hard to live next to abject poverty. Like, it rips their heart out. And I've seen that over the years. Somebody moves to a developing country, and literally you live in a very nice home, but in order to get there, you drive through a neighborhood of plastic and tin shacks, right? Tin shacks with plastic for walls, right? And you see the really, really poor people. And if that rips your heart out, if it just kills you to see it, right, and be around it, you probably don't want to live in the developing world, because you're just going to be miserable. But most people who decide this is probably something they want to do are the kind of people that will thrive, not just survive, but thrive in this immersion in a new culture. In fact, in my book, see here, I got to say the title right. It's I got some fun stuff in here. I like this one. The credibility scale for asking advice, or what's it called? The credibility scale for advice ranking, right? So when your friend who doesn't, it's like a 5-point scale or something. I forget what it is, a 6-point scale. Anyway, when your friend says, "Oh my God, you're gonna move into Medellin, Colombia," like you're gonna get killed, right? Right. The ranking scale is, if they don't have a passport, discount what they're saying 100%, right? And then if they have a passport, you can give them a little credit. If they've been on a cruise, a little more, right? So how do you rank that? But the thing that this, I have to give full credit to a guy named Robert Brown. Are you ready to live in a foreign country quiz? Okay.
Mm.
I talked with him many years ago. This is like 20 years ago. This uh 15 question quiz is the best indicator I have ever seen
Mm.
for somebody being able to move overseas and successfully transition.
Wow.
15 questions. This thing is spot on.
Mm.
Anyway, and so that's chapter 2, right? And then we go in and talk about each of the points, and then we get into due diligence and things like that. But on the front end, right? Knowing yourself. I mean, know thyself. There we go. We can talk about Socrates again.
That's right.
Know thyself.
Yeah.
Right. So, right. Again, a big part of the exercise is self-reflection, and we have about 100 question survey that we can send out to people, and we do send it out. And one of the questions on there came because I'm always changing it and morphing it, right? When
Mm-hmm.
Dan and Carol told me their story about living in the wrong neighborhood, we added a question to the survey.
Mm.
How close to an English speaking church would you like to live? Like,
Wow.
I'd never really thought about that before. It wasn't particularly important to me, right? So, I mean, I went to an English speaking church in Managua, but it didn't matter to me where I lived because whatever. But in Medellin, it actually does matter because the traffic is so horrendous. Like if that's really important, and you want to try to locate. So anyway, this bigger survey that we send out is really a powerful self-reflection tool, self-analysis tool, because once you get done with that, you can really quickly eliminate a bunch of places, bring the world down to 2 or 3 really solid targets of places that you would probably be happy. Then you go rent to make sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love the introspection part of it because this is what I'm discovering too is that the world is out there, but most importantly is to know what's going inside of us, right?
Yeah.
Preferences, fears, desires, dreams,
Yep.
these types of things. And yeah, so 15 questions for the foreign country quiz and 100 question survey. So
Yep.
people, I mean, this is a big step, when if you pick up your roots and you leave, let alone a city, United States, you're leaving and moving to a different country.
Right.
Yeah, there has to be some awareness that things are going to be a little bit different out there, and what to be aware of. You mentioned somebody mentioned about if they're moving to Colombia, they're like, you're going to get killed out there. It was kind of like Acapulco, right? Like we go to
Yeah.
Acapulco and they're like,
Yeah.
this is the murder capital of the world. I'm like, I feel very safe here. I don't have
Yeah.
any trouble,
Right.
So
Right.
you want to be, yeah, well, you want to be aware of your sources. And I think I'm glad you mentioned 28 years because I didn't know how long you would run in your company, but
Yeah.
that's a long time to have some expertise. So you must have seen a lot over, well, at least the last few years and prior up. Do you see a bigger movement of people getting out of the country or having multiple locations, or what type of trends have you seen in recent years?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. So when we first started our more actually my very first business, by the way, was a mortgage company in Belize 31 years ago, because there was no mortgage money for a U.S. person to buy property in Belize. So a
Hmm.
bank in the U.S. wouldn't lend you the money because the
Yeah,
collateral's in Belize, and the
sure.
banks in Belize wouldn't lend foreigners money, right? So there's
Hmm.
this big hole in the marketplace. So my college buddy and I, we started a little mortgage company and provided mortgages to North Americans. And then we expanded it to Honduras, Costa Rica, then Nicaragua, Panama. So we actually provide mortgages to anyone who doesn't, I mean, basically anyone at this point, mostly US and Canadians who want to own a property in that part of the world. And then we moved into the development space, about 28, almost 29 years ago now. But anyway, so the I'm sorry, David. I
Yeah,
chased a rabbit and
no
lost
problem.
the question.
Oh,
I
no,
am
oh, it always
sorry,
happens to
man.
me. Happens to me all the time. The mortgage 31 years ago. You're getting
Yeah.
mortgages
Oh,
from
trends. Oh,
yeah,
trends.
trends.
What trends? Trends. Yeah. So when we first started a development company, what we really were serving were North Americans looking for a lower quality of life, better weather, or lower cost of living. Sorry, not a lower quality of life. Sorry, lower cost of living, higher quality of life, better
Yeah,
weather. Yeah, affordability, and
yeah,
weather kind of were
sure.
the two things. And it
Yeah.
was really a retiree or a pre-retiree market.
Mm-hmm.
So from 1996 through really certainly 2008, which was when we had the first big real estate crash, right? And most of my competitors went out of business, but we survived it and came out the other side. And what we saw then was still more of a continuation of the lifestyle buyer from retirement, right? Cost, weather, those kinds of things. Interestingly, COVID, and I have a whole presentation I give on this, and I've written some articles about it. It's not often, probably very rare, David, that you can use these words, and I use them very carefully. But for the first time in human history, that's a pretty big statement, right? But for the first time in human history, work and the location of work have been decoupled for many people. I mean, you go all the way back to caveman times, right? You had to go kill the bear and pick the berries, right? Agricultural revolution, huge. People starting to live together and stationary, right? But you had to go tend the fields and tend the flocks, right? Then whatever, 3,000, 4,000 years later, we have the Industrial Revolution, right? And people had to go and work, but you still had to go to work. You had to go work the machines, right? Then starting in the 70s, they started to come up, they started to use the word post-industrial society. Alvin Toffler and Nesbitt and others, Future Shock, Megatrends. There were books written about it in the 70s, like, this new world where, people are going to be able to work from anywhere. And that was 70s, right? The problem was that the management styles were tailorist from the Industrial Revolution, right? And this idea of, I got to, assembly line management for information workers, right? So the management style was industrial, the work was post-industrial. And it wasn't until the COVID lockdowns, right? I'm talking about COVID, pandemic, all that kind of stuff, right? But they actually, the government's reaction to it by locking people down, right, broke for the first time a management structure that was old and antiquated, that was overlaid with the technology that was advanced, right? And so now all of a sudden people had to work from home. They have a choice, right? They had to work from home. And so the first time in human history, this is happening. And so and now I think some of the businesses, some of the governments are trying to claw people back. They're afraid of what's happening because you got all these buildings, that are empty, right? And so you got these big giant corporations telling their workers they have to come back, and most workers are going, I'm not coming back because I have other options, right?
Right.
So anyway, so it's an interesting time, right? But truly, and look, we use the word revolution, agricultural revolution, industrial revolution, right? Post-industrial revolution. Nobody uses these words in the moment because you only know it's a revolution 50 years and you turn around and look backwards, right? And we can label it that after the fact, right? In the middle of it, it's just messy. Like it is now, it's messy, right? Some people are saying, no, I'm not coming back. Some people are going back. The governments are saying, holy shit, we got all this debt. The banks are going to the government saying, we got all this debt. We got these mortgages and REITs and all that kind of stuff. All these giant office towers, and the mortgages are coming due, and the banks are just rolling them, right? What else is the bank going to do? The old joke is if you owe the bank, $100,000, you've got a problem. If you owe the bank, $10 million, the bank has a problem, right?
Right.
The banks have problems. The banks have huge problems with all these office towers that are empty, and these loans and mortgages. They're just gonna, I don't know what's going to happen. I think they're just going to roll and whatever. Anyway, but that's the thing. But you ask about trends. So two things on COVID, and so important. The reason I went this kind of that whole first time in human history thing is because we are literally, if we're talking about an onion, we're not even peeling the onion. We're just taking that brown paper off, the very tippy top of that onion, right? There is so much more below that I don't know what I don't know. I don't know where this is going, right? This is revolutionary in human history, and it's going to change it's changing everything. It's changing how we work. That's kind of obvious, right, for many people, but it's going to change how we live. It's going to change how we interact in society, right? And we're starting to feel some of that. The interesting thing is the Industrial Revolution took about 100 years with the invention of the steam engine kind of running through. It took about 100 years to kind of evolve into this, industrial society, right? 1650s, 1640s, 1650s into about 1750, 60, right? But by the mid 1700s, man, the Industrial Revolution's full bore, right?
Sure.
This revolution is going to happen much, much faster. It's truly evolving very, very quickly, but it'll still be 20, 30, 40 years. I can't see it happening. I think there'll be, upset apple cart shaking and,
Oh yeah.
reconfiguring for, at least a generation, probably two, right?
Mm.
But what we're seeing now from a trend standpoint is two things. One, on that, people who would have otherwise said to themselves, you know what? I'm gonna when I retire, I'm gonna move to Belize because I always love to fly fish. I'm gonna go fly fishing in retirement. Now, many people, a lot of people, they don't have to wait to retire. They can move to Belize today. They can fly fish in the morning and work all afternoon, or whatever, work on the weekends and fly, whatever it is, right? I'm a surfer. I can't wait to move to Nicaragua, some of the best surfing in all of Central America, and the waves are empty. You don't have to wait. Move and go
Wow.
surfing. When the waves are in, go
Wow.
surf. Right. So we're seeing people who would have waited for retirement accelerate, really accelerate the timelines because they don't have to wait anymore, which is very interesting. The
Mm.
other thing that happened, and we saw this from a lot of the Liberty conferences that we speak at, was this real sense of, wait a minute, like there was so much. Can I swear on your show? I don't know
Oh
if you
yeah, man. Freedom of expression, man. Absolutely. Drop the bombs.
okay, there was so much bullshit, okay,
Absolutely.
right, around COVID,
Loads of it, tons and trucks of bullshit, man. It's unbelievable.
right?
I still
I mean,
can't believe we went through that, man. That's crazy.
right. And they're saying one thing and then that's the exact opposite, but you can't say the exact opposite or you're getting censored. And I mean, like, like, oh my God, right? And
Oh
so
yeah.
yeah, so in the Liberty community, it was a wake-up call. So you got a lot of people were like, oh, if shit hits the fan, I'm gonna leave. Well, folks, bullshit hit the fan, and like you said, truckloads, man, truckloads, right? And so what we've really seen and what we've been able to serve, look, at the end of the day, like I think a lot of companies really jumped in and said, holy smokes, I can, I want to serve this marketplace, right? The good thing for us was we'd had at that point 22, 23 years, whatever it was, of real experience. We've been doing this for a long time. We're really good at what we do. So we were able to quickly turn on a dime. And even then we stumbled, bumbled, and fumbled. I'm very honest. I mean, you'll find me just super transparent. I mean,
Yeah.
we had people that we took orders for homes that were 2 years delayed. I mean, it didn't take us 2 years to build them. Like we were supposed to build it in 1 year and they didn't get it for 3 years. Okay. I mean,
Mm.
like big delays, but it was huge orders, tons of people wanting to get out. Right. And so we had product that was affordable. We had financing. People get finance up to 80%. Right. So all of a sudden there were a whole bunch of people like, wow, I, I just can't believe this is happening. All the thises, right? There's 100
Mm.
thises during that nonsense, right? I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of Canadians. I mean, it was interesting because
Oh.
when they shut down their bank accounts, right? They closed
Oh
bank
my
accounts. People,
gosh.
I mean, talk about a wake up call. Wait a minute, the government
Sheesh.
closed my bank account. I mean,
Sheesh.
yeah, or they closed somebody else's bank account, right? And be like, wait a minute, Bob, I've known Bob for a long time. Like
Yeah.
Bob's a good guy. What
Yeah.
happened to him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've seen really kind of an acceleration of the business on the retiree side because of the results of the lockdowns, right? The
Hmm.
work and the location of work being decoupled. I can start fly fishing now. I don't have to wait. I can do it now.
Mm.
Then we've got the people who really are just eyes wide open, saying to themselves, you know what? Yeah, I've always kind of thought that shit was going to hit the fan. It has, and I need to do something about it right now. And
Mm.
and so those are really the two big trends. At the beginning it really went high and it's fallen off. But I mean, these things all cycle, right? A lot of
Yeah.
people did it, and now I would say the normal flow of people who are just like, "Yep, I'm ready. I just want to do it." Yep, it's happening. And the polarization of the U.S. With the elections is,
Yeah.
I mean, like I don't care. I think both of these guys are whatever, big government, whatever.
Yeah.
They're big government, they're not about freedom in any sense, right? So I
Sure.
don't really care who gets elected. It doesn't really matter to me. But I'm pretty sure that if and we've seen this because again, we've been doing this 28 years. We've been through what's that, 6 election cycles,
Six
something
or
like that,
seven, yeah.
6 to 7 election cycles, right? When a Republican wins, the Democrats are crying about, oh, we're gonna leave. They don't. The
Yeah.
Democrats don't leave. When Trump got elected, the libs shut down the Canadian immigration website, right? So many, like, I gotta go to Canada. I'm guessing the number was 0 that went to Canada, right? I mean, but on the other hand, when a Democrat wins, we have seen incredible business from people on the right, well, it could be libertarians, but people on the right who are making the decision like, oh man, I got to get out of here, and they do. So there's kind of an interesting market difference between, I would say, the left and the right in terms of their action. Both are yelling and screaming, if this person gets elected, I'm leaving. But the people on the right actually, in significant numbers, actually take action. And Plan B is really important, because one of the things that we've seen is that even if you don't own a property, like you don't own a home, right? You don't buy a house or buy a condo or something like that. We've helped again, well over 1,000 people with a second residency. It's just the residency. Look, if you're from the U.S. and Canada, you've got this false sense of security, and the false sense of security is this: if shit hits the fan, I'm going to leave. Yep, no problem. Take your US or Canadian passport, get on a plane and fly to the Bahamas, Jamaica, Costa Rica, pick a country. You fly there and you just stand in line. And when you get up to the counter, they ask you a couple questions. They stamp your passport and say, welcome to Costa Rica. Great. You left. Just like you said, if shit hits the fan, I'm leaving. No problem. You left. But what do you do in 90 days or 30 days or 60 days when that tourist visa that they, welcome to Costa Rica stamp, right? When that tourist visa's done, then you either have to get it renewed, which you can, but I don't like that as a program particularly, and I'll tell you why in a second. Or you have to go home. Or if you don't go home, you're an illegal immigrant in a foreign country, and most countries don't treat their illegal immigrants as well as we do. So I would not want to be an illegal immigrant in a foreign country. And so just you've got these informal programs, which is every 90 days you get down to the immigration department, get it stamped, or you cross the border, you go up to Nicaragua, down to Panama, come back, they stamp it again. The problem was during COVID, borders were shut and immigration offices were shut. And you became, if you were living in a foreign country without a permanent residency, a permanent residence, like a green card in the US, you immediately became an illegal immigrant in one of these countries. Now, you know what? The governments were benevolent. Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, they're neutral.
That's a tough thing to come out of my mouth, but it was true. In the moment, the bureaucrats and the governments were benevolent. They didn't throw all these people in jail, right? But I never want to put my future in the hands of bureaucratic benevolence, right? Like,
Definitely.
no way. And so what a lot of people do, and we've helped a lot of people, again, well over 1,000 folks do this, is obtain a second residency, basically a green card in a country like Panama. I'm not a big fan of Panama for that. Nicaragua, I'm a huge fan of that, right? And so through an investment in an agricultural product that we have Teak. We've been growing Teak for 24 years now, and in plantations. Anyway, but through an investment in Teak, you then qualify for a residency, a permanent residency in Nicaragua. And so you get that, you put it in your wallet, and you forget about it. Hopefully, right? And then you have a nice Teak investment, and that works, and it pays, nice, handsomely in the future. But meanwhile, you have I call it the perfect freedom insurance. You have the ability not just to leave, because we all have that if we have a passport. You have the ability to stay, David, and stay legally for as long as you want in that other country. And to me, that is the most powerful insurance we can buy, because it's insurance on our liberty, right? It's on us. And so again, we've helped, maybe 1,300 folks do that. And that's a product that we see just consistently people wanting, going through the process. It takes about 6 months to go from start to finish. But we always have, dozens of people in that process all the time, because it's because it just makes sense for so many people, and it's affordable. Like it's about $32,000. You get an acre of teak, and you get a second residency, and again, and it's like another $1,000 for a wife and a kid, so you can get your whole family in for maybe under $35,000. You can get your whole family in, and and that teak investment will turn into about $400,000 over 25 years. So, I mean, so you have to wait 25 years because that's how long it takes teak to grow and be harvested. But at the end of 25 years, you've had that residency, you've had your freedom insurance for 25 years, and then in 25 years you get a big payday. So that seems to be a pretty popular, I would say the right word, popular way for people to, protect their liberty, right?
Yeah.
And that of their families.
Well, that's a great point. You can leave the country, but you want to be able to stay in the country. And I'm glad you gave the numbers too, because I'm curious about that. And just so people know, teak is like a tree, right? Want to tell them what a teak is? Because I just learned about it in your presentation. I didn't even know what that was.
It's a tree. It was originally, it came from the forests of India, Myanmar, Southeast Asia, and it's extremely hard wood. I mean, really, really hard wood. Which it's one of the qualities, because that's why they use it in shipbuilding. A lot of yachts, a lot of marine environments, they use teak because it's just so hard. It's resistant to rot, fungus, mold, all that kind of stuff. It also holds up to the weather very, very well. And without any kind of treatment or stain or anything like that. If you keep it stained, it's just beautiful gold, rich colored wood. But then about 350 years ago, the British were in India, and they started to raise teak in plantations. And so teak has been grown in a plantation format for 350 years. And so we like that because there's a lot of statistical data about where it grows, how it grows, all the different factors, elevation, rainfall, types of soil, just all the kinds of things that the British were tremendous at keeping track of as statisticians, right? And so now we started our first plantation in Panama 24 years ago. We'll harvest the trees in 2 years. And we're planting it in Nicaragua. And I think some of our trees there are now 6 or 7 years old. But yeah, it's a 25-year growing cycle. And one of the things it's very powerful for that freedom insurance, liberty insurance, right? Yeah. But as an investment, the really cool thing is you actually own the land and you own the trees. And at the end of 25 years, you harvest, then you replant, right? Which is, whatever, $300 a quarter acre. So what's that, $1,200 an acre to replant it? Today's number, maybe it'll double or triple in 25 years. Okay. So you make 400,000, you spend 5,000 to replant it. Who cares, right? But then in 25 years, your kids or your grandkids get the next harvest. And in 25 years after that, their kids or their grandkids get the harvest. So what you're doing is you're starting to create this powerful generational wealth stewardship legacy for your family. And a lot of people make the investment strictly as an investment because what they want to do is pick up that 25-year cash flow cycle so that they're actually stewarding wealth pretty much one generation, 20 years is a generation, but whatever, but 20, 25 years, one generation per harvest into the future. The big family offices have tons of timber. Harvard at one point a few years ago had 10% of their endowment in timber, right? And so you look at who's doing it, like, okay, because they think in 25 and 50 and 100-year timeframes. Most investors think about, am I going to get my rent check every month, or am I going to get my quarterly dividend, right? But truly, the uber wealthy, the family offices, the endowments, things like that, when you start to think about timelines of 25, 50, 100 years, you invest differently, and you invest for the future and the future generations. And timber is a great way to do it. And then for the folks in the liberty side of things, yeah, you get your permanent residency in another country. I mean, that's like that. There is no price on that. Like, to use Visa, right? Priceless, right? Whatever, priceless. What I mean, look, actually, I hope that that all the money and time I spent getting my second residency in Nicaragua specifically was wasted. It's sort of like my health insurance. Like, I don't want to have a heart attack or get hit by a bus so I can get great value from my health insurance, right? I truly hope that I've wasted my money on my health insurance, right? Truly. And
Yeah.
I think the same thing is true on freedom insurance, but my heart tells me that you know, most of us will be very, very glad that we have insurance for our freedom, insurance for our liberty in the near future. I'm worried, David. I'm concerned. I'm worried. I act as if things are great, right? Maintain the positive attitude, keep going, right? But as that Boy Scout in me, you know, be prepared, be prepared, run forward, keep the optimistic vision, but be prepared. And yeah, I mean, we were talking about the money and the buildings, right? I mean, the big office buildings that are half empty now, right? I mean, like there's stuff out there systemically that's problematic, and I don't know how it'll be. I don't know how it'll be handled. I just want options. I just want options.
Exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say that's an important point that people we can't predict the future, but we do see what's going on with the currency. And as I think Voltaire said, all fiat currencies ultimately go back to their
Yep.
true value, which is zero.
Right.
So it is inevitable that the dollar will become like the Weimar, dollar from Germany and the
Yep.
Zimbabwe dollar. I have one on my wall. I think it's a $10 billion bill. I'm a
Yes.
billionaire. It's worth like three pennies. So
Yeah.
and so the financial system and then the predators who are, they have agendas to enslave humanity. So it's like we're dealing with
Yes.
some really sinister forces. So I agree. We don't know what's going to happen, and to prepare and understand the world that we're living in is a very volatile world. And I even saw an article or a quote from Rothschild. I think this was 2 or 3 years ago now. And he's like, we've never seen a fiat like this, a system like this go on for this long, be a world reserve currency. And he
Okay.
was basically telling his investors, like, we don't even know what's going to go on. And that's not good. The guys who are running the banks don't know what's going on.
Right.
So I think
Right.
it's just important. We talk about the exit and build strategy here. We talk about independent food, water, energy, healthcare, education. And then what's been coming up recently, I'm glad you mentioned neighborhoods. There's a gentleman out of Kansas named Tag Meyer, and he introduced me to the idea called intentional neighborhood,
Yes.
which different than
Yes.
intentional community, right? Because the idea is, hey, we're all gonna, put 50 grand together each, and we're all gonna live on the same piece of land, and we're all gonna be a happy commune or something like that. But it's like, well, we're humans, and there's gonna be friction, and there's gonna be some conflict. This is natural. So how about instead of being on the same land, we're just in a similar neighborhood, and
Exactly.
that's you get your 5 acres over there, I got my five over there, and then we only have to deal with our partner, our lover, our family members. We don't have to deal with all six or 10 other people. It's like, I want to
Right.
vote on this. It's like, man, can we
Yeah.
just get
No.
along? So intentional neighborhoods is a very exciting idea. So this idea that we're taking responsibility, we don't know what's going to happen, but change is on the horizon. And since you're a financial guy, you might be familiar with Martin Armstrong, the
No.
forecast guy, the economist.
No.
Well, he created some AI like 20 years ago, and he was predicting cycles of banks and countries and predicting the collapse, I think, of the
Okay.
Soviet Union and other things. Anyways, the government came in there and said, hey, give us that software, give us that AI that you created. He said, no. And they threw him in jail for 10 years, and he made it out
Okay.
finally. He's in his 70s now, and
Okay.
his AI is saying this whole global financial agenda is going to collapse 2032, and that's what his AI engine says. So
Okay.
I think that's a similar timeline. You've heard of Agenda 2030, and these
Yeah.
guys, they have these 30, 50, 70-year plans, and it's like they see the horizon. But he's saying they're losing power, and the information age, the decentralization, consciousness is now expanding, awareness
Yep.
of these bad guys, these bad actors. All of a sudden, we're going to be looking at this group of people and just say, we're leaving you guys. We're going over here. We're not going to like fight you guys, but we're not going to
Right.
comply and cooperate with you guys either. So with Nicaragua, let's talk about that. And I can't believe the hour flew by us. We'll have to do this again for another hour. Um, I heard Nicaragua was really good. Some, I don't know, like 5 years ago, I had some friends down there, and then
Huh?
some people were concerned about, like, I don't know, war or political stuff. How has
Yeah.
it been down there? Because you were, well, you've had it for what, 20 years? You're a residency down there, and how is it to live in Nicaragua compared to, I guess, what you said now in,
Yeah.
West Virginia?
Yeah, so I got my residency either in 2002, 2003, I don't remember, but I moved there in 2002. Yeah, it probably took me 6 months. So I probably got my residency sometime in early 2003. Yeah, so I have a residency now for 21 years in Nicaragua. Lived there actually permanently for 14 years,
Mm,
raised a family there. I can just simply say that uh, of all the places we do business, my family has the most of our personal money invested in Nicaragua. I have
mm,
investments in all these countries, private, personal investments, as well as our corporation has its properties and investments there. But Nicaragua is where I have the most of our family money.
mm-hmm.
So I believe in it, not just with words. I believe in it with, my assets. The thing about politics is this. I actually like the fact that Nicaragua plays a contrarian position to the U.S. I find that refreshing. That if the U.S. votes A in the UN, Nicaragua votes B. I mean, or yes, no. I mean, like they're almost always opposite, right, in how they
Mm,
vote. And Nicaragua, I mean, the politics. Here's how I view us as a foreign investor or as a foreign expat, right? Just
yeah.
a resident of the country. Um, if I came over to your house, David, and you and your wife got in a big fight, right? We're all out in the kitchen, and you and your wife get in a big fight. You know what? I'm turning around. I'm going back to my bedroom, and I'm turning my TV up really loud because I'm a guest in your home. Like
Yeah.
you and your wife fight. Hey, not me, not me.
That's
I'm
it.
going back to my bedroom. Okay.
Yeah.
So we really counsel our residents. Hey, look, you have no opinion on Nicaraguan politics. You're not Nicaraguan. You're a guest in their home, right? If they
Mm,
want to fight, let them fight. Just go back to your bedroom, turn up the TV, forget about it. And
mm,
um, and the thing about Nicaraguans, even Ortega, right, is he actually likes Americans. He just doesn't like U.S. foreign policy.
yeah.
See, they're very different things, right? And I understand foreign policy is driven by people, right? Because I mean, people, bottom line, it's people, right? But at the end of the day, like if you're a guest, if you're an American or Canadian, whatever, you're a guest in his country, and you just like, yeah, we love it here. We contribute, we pay our taxes, we shop at the supermarket, we have a maid, we pay her, I mean, like we contribute, right? As residents, the politics of the country are irrelevant except for the fact that he is a little bit of a contrarian. And so I like that, right? I like the
Mm,
fact that he's a little bit, which is unlike Panama, for example. And I know we got to cut this short here in a minute because we're over an hour. But anyway,
mm,
unlike Panama, where the U.S. dollar is their currency, they because of the canal, they are tied to the hip. I mean, they're joined at the hip. They're tied. They're joined at the hip with the U.S. Which I get. The canal's a vital strategic interest, for
yeah.
the U.S. But by the way, the canal is a vital world interest, whether you're Chinese, Russian, German, Brazilian, it doesn't matter, right? That canal is important to anybody who's shipping goods or receiving goods, which is everyone in the whole world. So
Yeah.
I think from a stability of nation standpoint, Panama's stable. I don't think anything's going to happen to that country.
Mm-hmm.
I don't personally like the fact that it's just so tied to the U.S. With currency and other things.
Yeah.
But that's a preference. That's just a preference thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, real quick, because I know we got to go.
Yes, tell us about the book. And I got one other question here, a couple more minutes.
Okay.
But yes, tell us about the book and when it's going to be released and let people know about it.
Yeah. So this July 22nd, this paperback edition. And the way you find it is Michael K. Cobb. You got to put the K in there because there's a bunch of Michael Cobbs. Michael K. Cobb. And then it'll pop right up how to buy your home overseas. But this is the better part. And get it right the first time. That's the most important thing. And get it right the first time. Anyway, you can pre-order a Kindle version right now for $2.99, $3. For $3, the Kindle version pre-order. It all goes to $19.99 July 22nd when it drops. And I hope that lots of you all will get the book. If you're thinking about owning property overseas, moving overseas, investing overseas, it can be even just investing overseas, you need this book. You will be so happy. By the way, I'll make a deal. If you buy this book and you're thinking about property overseas and you say, Cobb, your book sucked, you send me an email with your address and I will mail you $20 bill. Okay? I'll mail you a $20 bill if you think the book sucks. So
that's heck of a guarantee, man. I'm sure the book is awesome. I'm sure the audience can tell, you know, what a knowledgeable and passionate guy you are. It's a very good, great conversation to have. And I wanted to mention one thing, because in your presentation, I think you said it just briefly here, you know, you can go for 12, 15-day tour, go check out different countries.
yeah,
It's like a shoe. It's like a shoe. But then you said also, I think at the Exit and Build conference, you know, take $2,000 and just go away for a weekend. Just go visit one and just see for your own experience.
yeah.
You want to share about the power of visiting maybe just one or two locations, just so you can go feel it and feel exactly what it is versus like in your head?
Sure, David. Thank you. Yeah, the challenge, by the way, was very specific, because so many people, when I bring up the word Nicaragua, the first thing that pops into their head is this memory of stuff that was from the 1980s, right? Sure. I mean, they had a civil war. It was horrible. I mean, 35,000 people were killed. It was ugly. And then you layered on the whole Iran-Contra, Ali North, Reagan. Like, so you have this kind of hangover of negative feelings about it. You might not even remember why. You just show the word Nicaragua and you're like, nah, nah, right? And so my statement is, the best investment anyone can make, if you're thinking about property overseas in the Americas. If you're saying I'm going to Asia, then don't do this, right? But if you're thinking like I'm thinking about a property investment somewhere in the Americas, Mexico to Argentina, right? The best investment you will ever make is $2,000 for a plane ticket and 3, 4, 5 nights hotel in Nicaragua. Because when you get to Nicaragua, you will experience it with your own sensibilities. You're not, I mean, like your own eyes, your own senses, and you will create your own opinion, as opposed to, rehashing the opinions of Ted Turner on CNN or whoever was the commentator back then, right? So that is so, like, yeah, Nicaragua. But I also think you're right, David. The idea that the best thing you can do is get on a plane and go to Costa Rica, go to Panama, go to Belize, wherever, go see it. Because I think that, again, we as individuals and actors, right, with consciousness, we have the ability to draw our own conclusions. And I trust my conclusions more than I trust somebody feeding me, because I don't know what filter they're putting it through. Right. I don't know what their motivations are, right? So yeah, go visit, go see it with your own eyes. I find that I find, especially with Nicaragua, people are pleasantly shocked. Like, they just can't believe that that's really Nicaragua and it wasn't anything like they thought it was. And then you can start to see what I call the time machine effect, right? You get there and you go, holy smokes, you mean they don't have a Dairy Queen? Nope, they don't have. They have McDonald's, Burger King, clicked all the, Pizza Hut, blah, 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 right? And you'd say to yourself, my God, a Dairy Queen would do so well here. Like, yep, it sure would. Get the franchise and go put one in, right? This idea of time machine, it works across the region. But anyway,
wow, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, financial opportunities as well in these developing countries as well. So entrepreneurs can come down there and make a great living or make some new businesses. That's very powerful. Just so many things pop up here. A couple minutes and we wrap up. I lived in Korea for about a year in 2009, 2010, but before I left, North Korea and South Korea were having some public spat, or the whatever nuclear war they're talking about. So my family members are highly concerned, like, man, be careful over there. And I'm talking to my Korean friends and they're like, don't worry about it, So I went over there, didn't worry about it. And then we mentioned Acapulco. Going to Acapulco the first 6 years, starting in 2015, I'm like, man, this is great out here. I feel wonderful. And then they report it's the murder capital, where I'm like, so you're able to see the corporate press propaganda, and it seems they want to keep everybody in the U.S. because of all the taxes. And it's a tax farm, as you know. Statism is just a sucking our life force. So does like Nicaragua, these places, do they have property taxes, or how's the property tax situation over there?
Yeah, they do. They have property taxes, income taxes. And look, I mean, every government has them because how else would they be a government without them, right? I think the issue is what are the rates? And yeah, what are the rates and what do you get for it? I think those are kind of the flip-flops, right?
Yeah.
I find that my value of taxes paid in Central and South America is reasonable. I know people might challenge me. Hey, pay 1 penny, it's not reasonable. Okay, fine. I mean that's a nice philosophical argument, but
Yeah.
how did you get here? Oh, you drove on a road. Yeah, okay, great. So I think that what I'm paying taxes for and what I get is it's a fair balance of cost and received. I think in the U.S. I'm feeling like maybe it's not.
Right. Where's all the money going to all these bureaucrats and politicians making this killing and the entrepreneurs working out here for 12 hours a day trying to, get by and they're just wasting the money. Well,
Yeah,
this has
well,
been amazing. Yeah.
it has
Feel free
been.
if you have any other comments, feel free to
Nope.
chime in here. But you can see, ladies and gentlemen, that Mr. Michael Cobb has been doing some good work and provided some great notes here. I got some. We want the Freedom Liberty Insurance to
Yeah.
exit and have a residency. So we got some good information. I'm sure we can have a more in-depth conversation next time in the future with more questions that the audience might have. And we'll put
Yeah.
your link below, Michael, so people can reach out to you. And if they have interest, they can, hire you and, go through your process and take advantage of all the experience that you have. So
That's
thank
great.
you for your time, sir, and for being here, for making an exit, for many
Yeah.
people who are seeing what's on the horizon and we don't know what's coming other than massive change, great points about the information revolution and the industrial revolution and uncoupling of work and location. That's a big, profound point, I
Yeah.
think, to emphasize again. So it's a beautiful time to be alive.
Yes,
Thank
it
you for
is.
joining us, audience members, and yourself as well, here on Voluntary Living, because we are building a world based on consent, self-ownership, and freedom. And we're going to help humanity evolve beyond all these things that are happening. We're going to win. We're on the winning team. We got people like you, Michael, and a lot of other people we've had on the show. There's a lot of good stars, a lot of strong men and women on the earth, and we're rising now. So, again, thanks for joining us. And I hope to see everyone here on the next show.
Sounds
See
good.
everybody. Bye.